attitude or not attitude, but I also think there's sort of a bad way, bad circuitry that's just going on, sort of passive, but the passive could be good as well. So I think I'm onto something, but I think it's I can't wrap my head around it totally. So it's just junk. Well, it's junky, funny. I don't know, but perhaps that's an attitude problem. But I think there's something to just you can also say that you have attitude in different ways, in different behaviors. Like a person could be very disciplined when it comes to exercise, but the person is, when it comes to eating something disgusting that you know is not harmful, but it just, you want to throw up when you think about it. That might, but I also think there's sort of a general disciplined attitude, but I also think when it comes to that, just perhaps height or social things, or I just like spiders, like fears or something that's, there are other brain circuitry in the brain that pushes away from it. It requires more of the attitude or the that focus ability. So yeah, and of course this is just one piece of the puzzle, but I think it's so interesting, so I can't help to not think about it. And I also think it's a good way of in the context of this video. I think it's quite good way to think about it. It's Well, I think it's well, there's certainly something interesting to be said about it, but I can't. I don't know where to continue with this. It is. Well, I was into the dopamine thing. I think that's quite. Well, if you do something with a positive attitude, I think you attach dopamine to it in a way. But I also think it's, like I said, for it's a lot of external things that are important as well. So it's just one piece of the puzzle. But like using brain power to not eat junk food when you have a lot of junk food in your home. That's hard, but if you're not bought it, it's not hard because you have to go. Yeah, so and so it's really about your environment, what you makes things be easy for you, and how do you make things to be yeah, easy or hard for you. um, so yeah. mm, um, well, maybe I should switch focus to something else then. I like, I don't know, to I think it is interesting. It really is. I mean, it's just it's well, it's because every decision in life is, well, not every, but many decisions in life are important, and it defines who you are and who you're going to be, and how good or bad life's going to be, and how good or bad people are going to feel around you from how you behave and so forth. So it's so what you focus on and your attitude to different subjects and actions and things determines that. So it is an important thing because it's really what you direct your brain to do, what you direct your brain to focus on. And it's going to most of the time it's just most of, and I think it's just when people say that 999 out of 1,000 thoughts that you have are thoughts you've already had, and I think that's a way to put it. But I have to say I hate when people put it like that. Even though I think it's generally true, I just think it's so much of an oversimplification. I guess because it's on a scale. Like if it's, perhaps people understand better when they say it, but if I'm not totally wrong, I guess it's on a scale of new and unnew is more of a, or well, Orwell. No, don't think new thoughts. Uh, well, it might be true that perhaps it actually might be true when I think about it, that most signals through the brain are like signals that have been before, but sometimes it creates a new connection, and that's perhaps a new thought. Well, then it might be correct. But I thought that it's more of a, if it's, because it's never the exact same thought, it's sort of nuanced in a new light every time I at least, or I don't know, but the exact same thing in the brain doesn't happen twice. On total, of course, but well, never mind. That was not what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about new thoughts in general, and you focusing on new things as well. And usually you could say, if you look at it from the outside, from a deterministic way, it's like, has the input been different in the brain? And if that's true, it's probably a thing that will make the brain different and fires off new neurons, and build new neurons. But I guess then, my guess is that it's a good new thought, perhaps, that I'm trying to get at, that consciously doing that decision, like, what should I think about? But although I have had that thought for a long time, and I don't think it's well, I do think it's, well, no, I was about to say it's have not suited me well, or it's not. When I think about it, perhaps it has, but it's of course not the only ingredient I need. But perhaps I shouldn't underestimate it, because it's extremely important when we all have our problems, and perhaps direct seeing it as that idea as a shortcoming in respect to it's like saying, well, I'm still afraid of dogs, even though I don't want to be afraid of dogs, and I've been prioritizing exercising for a long time, so maybe I shouldn't exercise because I'm still afraid of dogs. That would be equivalent of saying, perhaps for me, but it's not to say that exercising is the cure. It could like help me, perhaps, but nah, it's not a perfect comparison, because I think this is so central. But to focus on, to consciously choose what you're focusing on, like but it's hard, and it's really easy to come back to. It's really zooming out and just doing a panorama, or doing a, what's it called? Anyway, just looking at all the decisions that you have, and what should your brain be focusing on. What do you have to improve? What is good to be disciplined about? What focus area is something that you should prioritize? And just like I read it in the book Disrupt Yourself by Jay Samit. I think it's sort of a dyslectic, sort of entrepreneurial, very innovative insightful, I think, guy who but he says that for every, he talks about well, I don't know, but it says for every quote, no, for every like emphasis on not quitting, there's also an emphasis on you can't expect a new result if you're doing the same thing over and over again. So it's hard to know when you should just push on, like focusing more, like that what I'm talking about, for like just doing better of the thing that you're already focusing on to get better, and just zooming out more and just getting a new angle. And also when you're in that sort of focus, you're of course still dealing with the same thing, but sort of trying to find a new, like for example, if you're doing the same exercise and again and again and again and again, harder and harder, you're obviously sort of making new pathways both in your brain and in your muscles, like you're growing, like you're doing something that you've not been doing before. So your muscles are going to grow because you're doing something that you've not done before, like going further in in your, yeah, I guess that would be accurate, but sometimes, and so that's better than just not and just stopping. But if that's not the way it's going, if that's not like increasing your what you want to measure as a result enough, then it's perhaps not, then it's on the side of can't expect a different result if you're doing the same thing over and over again. But if it's just accumulative, like, and it's just about not quitting, then you should focus on it. But it's really on which level you should switch your focus, how much do you have to refocus. Because it's and all the habits that we already have, and it's just yeah, my brain just goes through, I guess, how easy to think about it just deterministically, but in the end we're always choosing. We can't just get away from it. Even, well, you could argue that we don't have free will and you don't choose your thoughts, but it's still like you're when you're living, you're still living as if, so it's still about taking good decisions anyway. So it comes back to just making the good right decisions, and a way of doing that is being aware of what you're directing your attention to, and that requires attitude, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where I started on this, but anyway, I think I got somewhere with it, even though I can't say I'm completely sad. I think it's one piece of the puzzle just waiting to fall into its place. But yeah, maybe I should discuss something else. Lovely weather. Uh, lovely day. Yeah, I haven't read anything today, I think, so can't discuss that. No, I feel as if my brain is not totally on fire. It's not dead, but almost. No, but it's the ideas are not coming in very fast sequence at all. But I think I still think there is a lot to dig into. But I was trying to figure out what should I think about that. Well, maybe I should talk about that. What should I think about? Because it's similar to what should I focus on. What's a good decision in general? And usually when I think about that question, I usually just come back to academic models a la Munger that I usually like rationality. And the reason is obviously that when I say academic models, I mean like the scientific verified truth that we have. And I've made it a sort of conscious decision to try to focus on that the last, I think, 3 years, 3, 4 years, 3, I think 4 years, 5, 4. Well, on different levels even before that, but like from the way it was presented by Charles Munger, that you should focus on all the academic disciplines and not just the one that you specialize in your as a worker or as a but and on some level I feel as if, and I usually feel as if I have tons to do still that I'm not gotten any far at all. And another part of my brain says to me that I've done quite well, or perhaps suspect that I don't see how well I might have done. But it's hard, really hard, because when I try to think about it, I think, well, I've done something, but it's very, very, very minimal, and I don't refocus on it, and I don't use it daily. So perhaps I should be glad that I have that insight anyway. But that doesn't mean I haven't learned a lot. I try to learn tons of things, but in my own pace, but I think very patiently. But and I wanted to discuss just what to focus on and that, but I get stuck on this evaluation of how good I've actually done, and I think it's super hard to actually evaluate. The only thing I know for sure is that I've focused on it as an idea a lot. But practically, yes, some things, of course, like the bias part in psychology, but it still feels that if I don't use it that much daily, unfortunately, it pops up into my mind sometimes. But and that's something. One thing I actually do use quite a lot, but that's just since 8th grade, when I was sort of puffed, or sort of, what's it in Swedish or in English? Yes, it struck me as an unbelievably profound insight that we're basically comes from the apes, that we're just evolved, and just evolution was the explanation. It's really struck me as something very, very, well, enlightening, really. It really was, whoa, that's the, even though it never explained consciousness in a way that I thought well, I don't think it still felt like what it's, and since that day I think I've almost, well, I very often just thought about it and just thought about it as it's so natural to think about behavior in people um, on that evolution, like with that evolutionary lens. But so that, and that's, I think that's extremely central importance, and that's something I'm proud of, that I actually have that, and I think I should be, because otherwise I wouldn't have the dopamine in my brain that makes me use it even more. Of course, you shouldn't use it to man with a hammer, but it's like you can overdo any idea, even it's usually the best ideas that's most easy to overdo, but I think it's hard to overdo that one, even though it's extra dangerous when you say that. But yeah, it's but if you don't have any other ideas, of course you're not going anywhere. So but anyway, as I said, when I do usually pose that question to myself, what should I focus on, I think that's the, like, scientific thinking, like what's the right thing to do, what's good. And when it comes to behavioral change, I guess it's, well, incentives is of course extremely powerful, but there's a lot of things that I don't know about this in this subject area, but I we're always striving to, no, we're not necessarily always trying to, well, we do always try to develop our insight, but we're not necessarily, well, it's different. Some things, like if you're a mathematician and that's your passion in life, and it's basically almost the only thing you care about, I mean, it's still extremely, like, just focusing in on that is probably not too bad. I mean, it's probably what you should do, but so just focusing on, but well, actually, even when it comes to that, I heard, well, I think if I understood Charlemagne correctly, he still thinks that's some sort of a handicap to be too sort of nailed in, too narrowly focused on that. But in academia, I guess it's, I forget where my train of thought started here, but it's a good thing to focus on. And maybe I think I want to zoom out a bit. I think I wanted to connect this more to life in general. Just what's sound? What's common sense, in a way? And well, a big part of the answer, I think, it's living not too different in certain aspects when it comes to just how we live, how our ancestors lived, those who, at least the positive parts, like starving yourself. Well, if you want to live long, it arguably could be good to not eat too much, but just because we did it back then, it's not a good thing. I mean, we did kill ourselves and others. That doesn't make it a good thing to do. But yeah, I mean, like, socially, I think it's sound. I don't think it's sound that we live on our own like many young people do today, including myself. being the only one who lives in the household. I don't think that's good at all, really. But I that's usually the state you have, at least very common sort of state you have when you move out from your parents. So it's perhaps better than that, but no. To cut the novel string, whatever it's called in English, pull the bottom string. uh, but it's quite a. I don't think it's good at all. And if you do it, I think it's even more important to connect to other people, because it's not a really at all a good thing. I think it's really bad, really. I'm not even sure it should be allowed. well, it could do a lot for someone who's introverted and just wants to focusing in on ideas. Like for me, it's been extremely, like I can appreciate the focus I can have if I'm just totally on my own. But it could be too much of the good vara. What's it in English? Too much of the good product. Well, it's an expression in Swedish. För mycket av den goda varan. Too much of the good product. Well, never mind. Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be like, but it's still this, like, you could connect this to a bigger discussion just about even enlightenment in sort of liberty, liberal society, where and the individualism, really, which I think it's quite a sound thing, really. But it is not perhaps sound that we're just living on our own. But at the same time, I do think I have a quite positive connection to it as well. So I'm not sure if it's maybe just something we have to do. I don't know. We should basically be trained for it. I mean, if you have something that's so much of an evolutionary mismatch to how you should live, and you're not educating people about it in school, it's basically it's sick, really, that we don't learn how to navigate such things socially when we're living in a society that's so evolutionary mismatched to that crucial behavioral component, so to speak, or whatever. It's quite odd. But so then the question is, how do you mitigate that? How do you handle that? And I guess it's just using that time as much as possible not being where you live, perhaps, or a reasonable amount of it, more with people instead. I guess that's the. And then it comes to this thing about work, because that's always something we're not evolutionary adapted to go to a place and then to a different place and then to a different place. Well, it could be to some level. I mean, you could sell stuff, and trade has been people been doing trading. Trade and sales is something that people have been doing since as long as civilization has been. Perhaps even, could you say, when we were farmers? Or it depends on how early, perhaps. Do hunter-gatherers trade? No, they just. I guess they don't. It sounds sad. Civilization must have come before trade. Anyway, um, yeah, the social thing. Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. Yep, 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 yep. Mm, yeah, I was thinking about the yeah, what how you should handle yeah, just not spending it around too much time basically on your own, but it's still hard because many philosophers and many thinkers have sort of praised the value of solitude, and that's why perhaps I have a somewhat positive association to it, because I not because I've only just read them and just and then agreed with them, yet because I've also found it very like it gives me a lot to also to do that. So but but no extreme is good there, I guess. And people are different, but we're and we're also different in different periods of life, of course. But no, everything can be done in excess. Um, Money, power, eating, sloth, mm, sleeping. Orwell, Orwell. At the same time, I hesitate because you always want to do your best, and you're always like, if you really have to, oh, well, well, but I'm just, forget perhaps what I said last 30 seconds, because well, I do think it can be done in excess, but something is are much harder to do in excess, perhaps. That's, but yeah, like, and it's definitely a big danger to do it too little as well. That's the thing, and but mm, brum, brum, brum. could anything be done to access? Where I was talking about, yeah, solitude and just socializing and stuff. Yeah, but that's something that really, I think that's it's discussing what you should focus, what you should use your attitude for, what you should attitude should be focused on. Well, perhaps dealing with that thing, that balance of solitude and social life. I think that's, and yeah, I was discussing the when you go to a job which is not at all like with trade. I said it's been something we've been doing since for a long time, even if it's not perhaps the original evolutionary environment that we went to work in that sense, because we're still around people we knew like a lot closely when we worked. Now it's like, yeah, you get to know those you work with and you have, but it's yeah, it's quite, but perhaps it's also, it's not only that. It's also if you do something that you appreciate when you work as well, and that's also a big question. How should I connect this to? Yeah, I think I'm not sure you sort of socially thrive when you do something around people and what you're doing is not aligned with what you want or your skills you have. Hmm. That's also a quite big discussion, but I think it's quite crucial because what you do is also sort of defines how people are going to, how your relationships are going to be to other people as well. They will view you sort of in the light of what you're doing. That's sort of your, it becomes it. Well, when it's going well, it should become sort of a part of your identity in some way. Like if you, yeah, and that if it's not a good match, it's not going to be very good. So yeah. Hmm. Well, perhaps there's some juice left in my brain still. Um, well, oh, 7:30 already. Um, um, well, I've been discussing social things, what you do for work, um, how you connect that, what's good things to focus on, like academic models, like evolution. We also have biases, rational thinking, and a way of doing rational thinking is, of course, doing models like evolution and stuff. But also checking your biases. And although when I try to think about that, I think it's extremely challenging to just, I mean, how do you know when a bias is directing you the correct way and the wrong way? You have to sort of, Munger recommends sort of, what's it called, 2-track analysis. First the rational, and then checking if, that's how I understand it, then checking if he was influenced on any bias. But then, yeah, I think it's, what's then the rational first? I think it's still extremely hard to know if a bias is helping you or just being a bias and misinfluencing your rational decision. But yeah, I guess I've had to train on it. Yeah. Well, where are I? But yes, well, models. I'm thinking about trade, and well, maybe I should connect it to things I thought about earlier, like Adam Smith, and just how do you develop a character, and in a world of trade, the mercenary era, or whatever you call it. Alienation, or at least just finding something that's intriguing to work on, and finding a social life that's in line with your biological and evolutionary adapted system, constitution. Yeah, I guess it just comes to that putting new thoughts in your brain by reading and meeting people and listening to people, and then using those ideas to think, and then implementing and trying to zoom out and zooming in, and it just usually that's not happening. That's how I feel. Usually it's happening, but it's slow, and the crucial thing there is to speed up the process, and that's extremely hard. Usually I think that it's as if, coming back to attitude, there's something, sometimes I feel as if I had just focused on that problem intensely for 10 minutes, it would have been solved, but I've never given the problem those 10 minutes in my life. So if I just could intensely focusing on something, and perhaps that's not too far from the truth. I mean, well, it is perhaps, but yeah, there's a lot of things that just are disconnected in the brain that desires a synthesis. It wants to be synthesized, but I've failed to do it. But that's always going to be the thing, that ideas are not enough. I mean, we're not omnipotent. No one is, but still, you want to speed up the process, and the crucial thing is how you do it. And yeah, so learning, yeah, that's an obvious thing. What does it mean to learn? What it means to change your brain, really. So new input and new output, new actions, new behaviors, new thoughts, and new insights, and then using that. New focus, using time to focus on the correct problem. Perhaps knowing how your brain basically are going to direct from things that it doesn't found as evolutionary beneficial, but it perhaps is evolutionary benefiting for you in this society. Like, for example, wasting energy in exercise, or taking social risks that's not much of risks today, or yeah, so many things. But yeah, I really have to put an effort to make my brain work. My brain just wants to sleep. Not sleep like literal, but it just, nah. Nope, not today. I think tomorrow instead. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, all those ideas, still make an effort to connect those ideas, because it is really interesting. Evolutionary models, like directing your attention. You have some issues, evolutionary mismatch from, and then also the mercantile society developed in the 1700s, 1800s, perhaps. It's been going on for a long time, but it's more and more, and you specialize, and you get sort of perhaps a bit alienated, and you live differently, but you have a lot of things that in general are better, a lot better, but it's still challenges that you have to overcome. And it's, yeah, living perhaps alone, or living not an optimal social life, or having bad social life, or no social life, or not a good work environment, or not a good work, not a good attitude, and then just, and those are parts that need to be sort of worked, but then you also have your work, like your accomplishments, and that just blind has focus, just drill down on the performance that you want to do, what you want to do in your life, what you want to accomplish. And that's but it is a challenge. How do you use general sort of wisdom and apply it and make a change of yourself and develop yourself and your skills? It is crucial, sort of, so to speak. How do you make it? How do you make it? How do you make it happen? How do you make anything happen? But I guess also one thing to appreciate is perhaps like, well, I think I speak only for myself if I say that well, not sure. No, I don't necessarily think. I'm trying to describe this in a way that I think is accurate, but I'm just, yeah, well, yes. Like, uncertainty is sort of a beast, or just feeling uncertain about something, or feeling like some sort of blindness commitment, or just commit to something that you want to get done. If you're not totally convinced that it's amazingly good thing to do, it's hard, at least for me, to do, unless if I already have a habit of it, of course. But if something new, it's, well, especially if you don't have like positive association, especially when it's challenging and not something your brain wants to do, it is really crucial to plan and just have a plan and then execute. But usually when you have a plan and do something and you realize that it's not going as you thought, it's very easy, for at least for me, you sort of getting demotivated and think, well, maybe this was not the good thing, and then you just fall back to bad habits because you forgot that was the good thing to focus on in the first place, because your brain basically avoids it again because it was not what it wanted to do and you forgot to direct it again to that thing. Well, oh, it's just a big mushroom in my head right now. But I can squeeze some out, some juice still. Okay, here we go again. Models, rationality, illusionary mismatch, Smithian sort of specialization, perhaps some level of alienation in the social life that's sound, and I just forgot what I talked about for 10 minutes, but I guess it was something about, no, I've forgotten. Better take that for 50 minutes ago. Attitude, perhaps. Attitude, I'm mad at my brain right now. It's not working. It doesn't happen anyway. I should try to focus, okay? What can I make out of these ideas? Not a single fucking thing. It's dead. My brain is dead. And I'm going to make it live again. Because I'm stubborn. In a bad way. Seriously, I want to. It's so interesting, really. So. Okay, let me just talk and maybe it pops up some ideas. Again, it's important to appreciate academic models and use them. because if you don't, you're not doing something that's rational, because you don't have any level of verification that it is something. Okay, fuck it. Bye.